as them do not know the past. Wasn't so long ago, a different tale was told. The ancient script has been rewritten, no products are to be sold. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Yeah, they put a spell on you. They're scared by these illusions, this new spooky ad campaign. Everywhere you turn, it's always pounding in your brain. Do not go to beaches, do not breathe the ocean air. Yeah, they stole $6 trillion just to show how much they cares. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Yeah, they put a spell on you. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Well, flipping through all them channels, programming mind control. Try to convince the world that the humans got no souls. Yeah, they're only flesh and blood. Yeah, they're only dirt and mud. Our lies conspire to douse the fire, inspire with the breath of life. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Yeah, they put a spell on you. Oh, lockstep marching doctors with their dangling stethoscopes. Their science they claim the final solution, the only human hope. Or keep you from your neighbors, all muzzled up in the mask. Yeah, you take them off 'cause you got no cough, but you don't know who to ask. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Yeah, they put a spell on you. Yeah, they got you where they want you. Yeah, they put a spell on you. Oh, one thing is crystal clear. Can I live in fear? 'Cause if we do, the human spirit will surely disappear.
That's right. The human spirit will surely disappear. That was Mike Mattingly, the Funky Fathers, playing the intro track. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Will Keller. Thank you for joining. It's nice to do, back-to-back live streams. Last night, we talked about March 14th, 3/14. That was Pi Day. A lot of synchronicities on what pi and phi are, right? The golden ratio. And how that is a mathematical description of the language that we can perceive and harmonize with, and it is very much natural law. This episode, we were going to talk about another critical time period because it is officially New Year, right? This is the natural New Year. Well, it's about to be in a few days, right? So usually March 19th, 20th, 21st, that is officially spring. And that completes a cycle from life through the season of death, all the way back to renewal. And that's what spring is. But this time period is very, very potent. It's potent on many levels. Excuse me, a little congested still. It's potent on many levels. Of course, there's the energetic and the psychological aspects of this natural cycle that we all are going to go through. Of course, shout out to my Aussies and my Kiwis in the Southern hemisphere, right? It's obviously different, different time period, different type of energies. But I'm speaking today, this is primarily for the Northern hemisphere of the planet. But going into spring, there is a period that there's a couple things that we're going to touch on today. What is this time period? What are the energies? How can one utilize them? But also, the parasitical ruling class, these social engineers, understand natural law. They understand these energetic components extremely well. And of course, they're going to utilize them to further an agenda, to manipulate and influence perception of the masses, and obviously to, push forward their agenda. And we are very much seeing that in effect right now. But this session tonight is going to give some really good insight for your awareness. It's going to reveal choice. It's going to implore activation within yourself for accountability and your ability to respond to this phase, to this natural cycle, right? Responsibility. Response-able. So I'm looking forward to this show. And again, this is the season of sacrifice. I always talk about it, and I've done many episodes. Pretty much each year I do an episode on this time period. So you can go back, check the previous episodes, and fantastic minds and souls like Mark Passio has obviously done a lot of work in this category as well. So I highly recommend people go to his website, whatonearthishappening.com. Check out his episodes that he did on this time period. Obviously, he brings some powerful insight on the dark occult aspects, being a dark occult whistleblower. So I highly recommend that. But as a pagan animist, it's always good to understand both the light and the dark. Because yes, the social engineers are going to use this time period for influence, but you yourself should understand this cycle and what that means for your mentation, for your internal ecology, and some practicalities, some applications that you can do to harmonize yourself with the rhythm of life, something I touched on a lot yesterday's live show. So let's check it out. We're streaming live on X, Facebook, YouTube, the Funnel YouTube as well, along with my personal platforms, Natural Freedom League, Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. How's everyone doing? Checking the chat real quick. Yes, that's right, brother. Parasites understand natural law very well. Good seeing you, Nick. Cosmic Surfers in the house. Love it. All right. Appreciate you all for joining. Kind of like doing these evening live streams. I'm in California, so it's Pacific daylight time, right? We had daylight savings time 2 weeks ago, which is another complete, fucking psyop to throw the circadian rhythm. And, it's, I could be mistaken, but I think the U.S. is the only country, the only territory that still does daylight savings time. And even in the states, there are certain states like Arizona, I think that's mountain time, that do not do the shift. So it just throws everything off. And that's obviously done on intentional as well, right? I think as human beings, aligning our cycles and our rhythms with nature, the natural cycles, is extremely important. I myself shift as the sun shifts as well, right? I like to wake up with the sun, and I like to wind down and then rest as the sun does as well. Australia does it, the daylight savings time. Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. That's right. Yeah, some states here in the U.S. do not. So very interesting. Of course, that was done. I can't remember the dates that was implemented, but of course, when it's lighter for a larger portion of the day, then workers can work longer. You have longer work hours, etc. So always read the subliminal messages. There's symbolism everywhere, even on coffee cups and teacups. Okay, cool. So appreciate y'all. Thanks for all the checking in. Let me get to my assets real quick. Also, remember, all my content and work is at willkeller.com. That's my official website. So go check that out. Here's the title card. I made two. Yes, they are AI generated. I use AI as a tool, not a crutch. But we're talking about the season of sacrifice, 2026. It's a 40-day period, a phase, March 19th all the way to May Day, May 1st, also known as Beltane, right? So we're going to talk about a lot of things. Obviously, discernment, self-improvement, nature itself, conscious action, and rebirth and renewal, right? I'm going to leave towards the end. We're going to get into some practical applications one can do, one can incorporate or not, right? I think it's good to kind of have a diverse, robust practices. Being someone that got into the occult, into occultism, which simply is hidden knowledge of nature and the self, consciousness, and how nature operates, right? When I got into that body of information around 2014, 2015, I dabbled in all of the mystery traditions, as many as I had access to, and did not only acquired information of what that tradition was about on the light spectrum and the dark, the positive and the negative. I was very much interested in the practices that they implemented as well. So, and utilized many practices. My go-to for a few years was Franz Barden. Highly recommend his protocol. He's got a 3-book series. The first one, Initiation into Hermetics, is fantastic. It is a practical handbook. You don't proceed to the next chapter after you have made significant progress in the previous chapter. That is where I gained a lot of my personal practices that I use, not only on a daily basis, but also on a cyclical nature as well, with the cycles and the phases. But I didn't just stick with that, right? I've pulled from all different traditions and made my own practice that, vibes with me and in my environment. And I recommend people do that, right? Create your own that works for you. This is all about the activation and the generation of action, right? Coming to a clearer worldview, perception of what is going on, not only externally, but internally, right? And then acting on it, being efficient, effective human beings where we say what we want, and then we act upon that, right? In accordance with morality, with right and wrong, truth, of course. So let's get into the season of sacrifice. First, let's always bring it back to nature, right? Here is the astrological wheel where we have the zodiac signs. And you could look at this as like the cosmic clock. And of course, the sun is in the middle. And we can see the seasons in itself, right? So there is the cross, right? Christianity always taking, well, all the cultural religions, right? They're taking, pagan animistic teachings that are based in nature, in truth, inherent truth, and then they they distort it, they invert it, pervert it, do whatever they want, use metaphors, right? So the sun, not the S-O-N, but the S-U-N, crucified on the cross. That is the cross right there, depicting the horizon, latitude and longitude. Now, actually, before I get into this, I did put on here, and some of these slides are from actually Mark Passio's presentations that he's given on his podcast. I think they're great images, and then I have some others that I've taken and used, and it's good to have these visual aids, right? So we can obviously see that the 4 quarters, starting from Aries, right? Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, right? So we have the beginning point of a cycle. Let me actually go to this one first. So we can see right here, and what's interesting, going back from the live stream that I did last night where I was talking about pi and phi, right? This is natural law governing cycles, the circle, and phi, the golden ratio, with momentum and spirals. So here we can see, starting from the natural new year of the spring equinox, right, which is typically March 21st. And that is a period of, we are talking about only the first half, right? So we're talking about just a certain section of spring all the way to the midpoint. And then we have the summer solstice, which is vertical at the 23 degrees. And then it goes to September 21st. And now we're in fall. So this is the path of the sun. You could see, if you start from all the way to the left, right? We have the linear line, which is the equator, the sun moving from the spring equinox. It is rising all the way up to its highest point, which is summer. And then it starts to make its journey down, and it falls into winter, into the Tropic of Capricorn, right? And then it makes its journey back up. So if you actually complete this symbol, right, the S, if you complete it, it makes a figure 8, which what I was talking about yesterday with pi and phi, that is pi and phi right there, right? That's the inversion of the toroidal field. Also the top-down version of a spiral. So we can see, even in the path of the sun, it creates a toroidal movement, a pattern, and we can see pi and phi right in there as well. That's a little caveat, just tying in yesterday's stream with what we're going to get into today. So all through ancient cultures, right, these time periods, spring, summer, fall, or autumn, and then winter, right, they had certain attributes and characteristics. Obviously, we can observe nature. This is the animistic mindset. You observe nature and you can learn profound insight, knowledge, and wisdom based in truth. Nature is the ultimate mentor, right? And all truth is based in nature, that which has manifested and that which is manifesting. So we could see spring obviously is renewal. It is growth. It is the earth element itself. And then moving over to the season of summer, right, which is really represents Leo at its highest point, right? That is, of course, the element of fire. It's when the sun, it's at its highest point and it is hot. Going into autumn, The sun is dropping lower on the horizon, and we're in the water element. There's a lot of rain and water during this season. And then, of course, the sun moves to its lowest point, right? Which you could say the sun is in the season of death, which we're going to get into in a minute. But going into the season of winter, this is ruled by the air. So earth, the element of earth being, excuse me, being resources, form, material, moving to fire, which is action and willpower, water, which is emotions, right? And nurturing. And then air, which is the intellect, is the mind. So those are the attributes that we could see, overarching attributes we could see of these cycles, these natural cycles. Now, just on its face, of course, these elements are going to have an influence on the individual, right? It's a good time to, what is spring for? It's a good time to plant seeds, to get your gardening going, right? Of course, the ground is fertile. It is ready to plant seeds. So we can sow during that time, and then you can reap the benefits in summer, the season of fire, where we harvest and consume and ultimately prepare for the second seasons. So, of course, in ancient cultures, right, it really wasn't in the 4 quarters. It was seen as 2 cycles. The season of life, right? Spring to autumn. And then, of course, the season of death. Of course, season of life, renewal, growth, fertility. We could see that even in nature itself, with as we're coming into spring. How do you know it's spring if you don't have, a fucking smartphone and all this high tech? You easily observe in nature, depending where you're at. You could see the buds start to go green and propagate on trees, and the plants start sprouting, or the snow starts melting, right? You could tell that the sun is higher off the horizon. You have longer, more light during the days. The animals return, the birds return, right? And then the flowering and the plants. All of these signs and symbols that we can see signify the season of life. And of course, the season of death. For ancient cultures, this was a period of death. Depending on what location you're at, right? The summer was to harvest and stockpile to prepare for that season of death itself, right? Because it's dark, it's cold, plant life is scarce, the animals hibernate or migrate, right? So it was a really brutal time. And of course, this is where our holidays originate from, right? The main holidays that are seen as almost holy days from the cultural religions, it's not where it derives from. It derives from the actual seasons of nature itself, right? And as long as human beings have drawn breath, they have looked up to the sky, they have observed nature, they have pulled and extracted wisdom beyond timeless wisdom by the animistic practices of really the scientific method, right? Observation, trial and error, experimentation, application, wisdom, right? What you have learned, put into action to accomplish certain goals. So these holidays can also be, you can look at them astrologically as well, right? So you can look at the constellations and the sun and the moon, and you can find out, the sun itself. This whole path is the calendar, is the year calendar. The sun also, in the microcosm, it gives you the hour of the day. The moon is the month, right? And the constellations tell you what season you are in. Now, how is this useful? Well, first, why does this apply for the social engineers, right? Because as I was talking about, there is natural inherent energies that influence everything, not just human beings on the psychological level, right? Plant, animal, mineral, the whole celestial being, Earth itself, right, is alive. And this is just her stroll in the cosmos, and we get those effects. The social engineers know that they are going to try to transmute this energy for their own personal agenda. Like I was talking about yesterday, their primary principle is inversion. They want to invert truth. They want to invert the knowledge of natural law, the knowledge of nature, right? So you really can almost look at this as what our season of life, for them, they want to transmute that to their season of death. That's what they want to do. So they're going to use these elements to create certain scenarios that have an influence. The name of the game is perception management for behavior control. That's their blueprint. It's ancient. They have no need to change that because it works flawlessly in the modern age, right? Because human beings in their own right do not have the knowledge of real occultism, both light and dark, and natural law and truth itself. So they are easily manipulated and swayed and influenced during these time periods. So the season of sacrifice, like I said earlier, it's 40 days between March 22nd, 322, Skull and Bones Day, to May 1st, right? Which is Beltane, May Day. That is the sliver of the season of sacrifice. And why that little time period, that sliver, is so important, because that is the energetic time to plant seeds. The ancient cultures, many ancient cultures, saw that the blood of human beings is sacred, right? It carries life force in the blood. The heart is the generative organ of the body. The heart itself is the vortex, is the toroidal 0 point that uses that pi and phi, right? Toroidal dynamics to pump the life force energy, the chi, throughout the body itself. So blood to them was obviously very sacred, right? You put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, as the saying goes. Now, sure, lots of cultures all over the place, they would do sacrifices, mainly animal sacrifices, to spill blood onto the land itself. It was an offering for the land and for this cycle energetically, for a bountiful, fertile ritual. It was a fertility ritual, but it was for a bountiful harvest come summer, right? Now, we obviously don't need to do that now, right? We understand the energetic components of willpower. That is what really is going on when you put your blood, sweat, and tears, you put your action, your mentation, your care, and your action into something to generate a result. That is the real law of manifestation, right? It's based upon action itself. So we don't need to violate animals in that regard, right? But the social engineers, obviously, being from these old ways and the dark old religion, they are inverted in how they operate, right? These cycles, everything, like I showed, it's all about the sun. S-U-N. That's why, Christianity is a dominant cultural religion in the world, right? It's allegorical for the sun, S-U-N, in itself. But this also represents the soul. It represents humanity's collective soul. You could say the egregore of humanity, the collective consciousness. It also represents the individual soul itself, right? Soul in correlation to psyche, to mind, right? They're one and the same. So the social engineers, of course, the sun is sacred. It's the giver of life. Without the sun, nothing exists, nothing lives, right? So yes, the sun should be revered. Nature should be revered. I don't use the word worship. I use the word work with, because that's what we really are doing in this reality, having this experience. We are in this interconnected relationship with all life, all beings, nature itself. Of course, we're not separate from that. So we are in this relationship dynamic, and the reverence and working with, first understanding and honoring, right, these energies and these time periods, and then working with them in a harmonious, symbiotic fashion. That's what I call the rhythm of life. Now, of course, the social engineers, their whole MO is fuck nature, fuck creation. They want the sun to be dimmed out. And their religion, of course, is the black sun itself, right? The inversion of the light, the dark, the eternal dark, the black sun. So with holding that religion, they very much not understand, but they want bloodletting. They want to spill that blood upon the earth as a sacrifice to the black sun, right? Now, this does many things, right? They first create traumatic events, real or fake, could be a false flag, could be an actual event, these psychological operations. The main thing that does is, one, throws the public off the natural cycle, it being in tuned or in line with the natural cycle. So if a time period is for fertility, planting seeds, growth, renewal, life, and the populace is in a state of thrall, trauma, division, cortisol through the roof, right? You're taking human beings out of their element, which has a profound chaotic effect on individuals themselves, right? So that's what they want to do. Chaos, real chaos. And they're going to do that on the energetic level by implementing certain events to influence perception, right? To generate certain behaviors and outcomes. Now, there is some Freemasonry, synchronicities with this, right? So you have March 22nd. March 21st is typically the starting point of spring. So you have 322 with this really originates. I would say it's not an official Masonry traditional Sabbath or holy day, but it does come from a clandestine lodge system from Yale University, right? 322, Order of the Skull and Bones, which is really the order of death. Let's look at the skull and bones. First of all, what's the synchronicity with 322? Well, 3 means unity consciousness, triangulation. It represents the triangle itself. Triangle is a perfect harmonic geometry. The most stable shape represents the 3 aspects of consciousness: thoughts, emotions, and actions. So when you are unified within your thoughts, emotions, and actions, as I think, so I feel, and then so I act, right? You are in unity consciousness. You are embodying that, the symbol of the 3. Now, the 2 and 2 itself means duality, polarity, which sure is a principle in nature. We could see duality, but obviously understanding duality, you want to balance polarity. That's the middle path. You don't want to be one extreme. You don't want to be polarized to one extreme or another. And this applies to really anything, right? You don't want to be polarized. This is what they do with these Hegelian dialectics. That's what a Hegelian dialectic is. It's a polarization tactic. Keep separate factions, to keep people enthralled on one polarization or the other. The political system does this very well, right? The left political party acts a certain way, and then they'll flip it, and they'll do the same thing for the right, and it keeps people in the state of imbalance. The pendulum is swinging to one extreme or the other. So 2 represents duality and polarity, polar opposites. Of course, 1 is the middle path, is balance itself. So we have 3, which is unity consciousness. 2. So a 2 is polarization, and then another 2. 22 is really an amplification of polarization. If you have 2 and a 2 and you put them together, you have a square, right? Squaring the triangle, putting consciousness in a box. That's what it stands for. They're really exposing what the order is about. They're all about influencing and mind control. Putting consciousness, putting a limiter on awareness, putting awareness in their box, right? So that's what 322 signifies numerically. Let's also look at skull and bones. So we have skull itself representing the head, also would represent the intellect, and then the bones, the leg and arm bone, okay, representing action, right? We move, we pick up things, and we create change in the world with our hands and our legs itself. But what is missing? Something is missing from that. The heart, care. Care is completely removed, right? The heart itself is the generative principle, that feminine aspect of care and nurturing. Generation, what you care about is what you generate in the world within your life. So that symbol right there is, it's very dark. They're letting you know this is what occultism is all about. If you have the eyes to see, to decode the language of occultism, the answers are right there. They're all in the symbolism and the meaning of the symbols. And that's not just the dark aspect, right? Occultism, occultare, means hidden, to hide from the eye, right? To hide from the eye. It just means it's simply hidden knowledge. And this is the category that so many people are afraid to go into, primarily from the cultural religions. It's no coincidence that the cultural religions just rail on the occult so much, right? Because if you go into that body of information, then you absolutely see all of the BS that's within encoded. You get into the center of the body of information, which is the esoteric. And then you can unveil or de-occult, unhide that which is being hidden. Now, nature inherently, innately is occultism. Think about it. Nature itself. We incarnate in this life, in this reality, right? The tree doesn't tell you how it grows. The physical laws don't explain themselves. The metaphysical laws don't explain themselves, right? Only human beings write a book and claim it's from the creator and claim that it is authority, which is the biggest amount of bullshit ever. Nature just is. And the whole purpose of existence is for you to embark on that initiatory journey of discovery, the mystery in nature. My story, the mystery. This is a part of life. Nature itself is the living constitution. There is no divine doctrine or handbook for nature. It's a challenge. Life itself is saying, do work, discover yourself and your place, discover what it means and what purpose is. This is why animism is the inherent default worldview of human beings. And after all of the cultural religions crumble apart and fall away, animism will always be there. Because all you need is eyes, ears, hands, heart, and your mind. Have any of those, you can discover profound knowledge in nature itself and within yourself. One and the same. So, oops. Let's go to the comments real quick. I kind of went on a little rant, which was great. Right on track. Hey, Tim. Hey, Alpha. Black Hole Sun. Yes. Yes. That band, obviously, you know, if you know what happened to Chris Cornell, that's the lead singer of Soundgarden, right? There's a lot of good esoteric symbolism in, you know, even that song, but in a lot of the work as well. For me, Saturn is like a liberator. Yes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's a light and dark aspect of every planetary archetype, and Saturn is justice. Saturn is natural law. So 100%. Of course, you know, there's the inversion and the perversion of, you know, the cult of Saturn, or Isis, Ra, El, and these cults like that. The eyes of the window to the soul. Yeah, 100%. 100%. So the social engineers, of course, they want blood. They want blood sacrifice, actual blood, right? And let's look at some of these events. Mark Passio did a great job writing this list, and in a couple more slides, I added some that have happened because he only has these to a certain date. Now, of course, there are, real quick, of course, there are false flags, psychological operations all the time. But the point is that there's a certain time period where certain events have taken place to gather a certain type of response from the public. Let's check out some of these, right? The Battle of Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775, which, by the way, the anniversary for the United States is coming up in April. Great Boston Fire, March 20th. Baltimore riots, April 19th. San Francisco earthquake, April 18th. Sinking of the Titanic, April 14th. The Shushara massacre, Martin Luther King assassination. The Waco massacre, April 19th, which you'll notice some synchronicities with some of these dates. They're around the same time. Like, you see a lot of April 19th. You'll see some April 20th. You'll see some 322s, right? And there's reasons for that as well. Heaven's Gate cult suicides, March 26th. Columbine shooting, April 20th. There it is, 4/20, 1999. Iraq War, shock and awe bombings in Baghdad, March 19th. Virginia Tech massacre, the 16th of April. BP oil spill, 4/20. There you go. Invasion of Libya, March 19th, 2011. So you could see there's a couple more 322s with the Brussels bombing, Westminster attacks in London. Here's another list from 2019 up to 2024. And of course, we can even add some from 2025, right, that we have seen. Just think about some of the atrocities that are happening right now. And that started last year as well. So 2019, right? Look, 322, yellow vest protests escalate, which of course was incited and planned. April 15th, Notre Dame Cathedral fire, Sri Lanka bombings. 2020, right? One of the biggest psyops The pandemic officially March, you could say, I mean, depending where you're at, right? But it was March 19th, 20th, 21st, 3/22, and March 23rd. When I looked it up, it had the official date as March 23rd, right? But still, but right there in the season of sacrifice, right at the jumping off point. And that's a really good example of what a high caliber psyop can do, right? And if people, I hear comments a lot. People are like, "Oh, the social engineers, they're working for a one world government." Folks, listen to me. It already happened. It already happened. If you need any kind of evidence, look at the pandemic and see how global, in tandem, the whole globe was, the whole planet, right? The belief in human authority, government itself, is the new world order. The belief in government, the belief in human authority. This happened a long time ago. Everything that we're experiencing now is just tightening the grip. We are in a transitional period right now. Of course, moving into this AI occultocracy technocratic state, which, in my opinion, to be honest, there is, in this shifting or in this transitioning, the Hegelian dialectic of creating a problem to get a reaction, and then they also provide the solution, right? That's part of the fucking playbook. I think the dissolution of, you could call, traditional government or democracy, that's intentional, right? Because it's almost the majority nowadays where people say that, government, democracy there's a big issue with it. They don't believe in their government. They don't trust their governments all around the world, right? They're doing that intentionally, for sure. And I think we will see some big events that are going to really sink the nail into the coffin, Skull and Bones reference, and seal the deal, to move from traditional government into some type of technocratic AI run state. Actually, in fact, a little side note, if anyone has seen Westworld, the TV series, season 3 and season 4, go check that out. You'll see where we're heading into. 100%. You don't have to get into the character arcs and those type of plots and stories, right? So you could just, if you haven't seen 1 and 2, you could watch them all. There's some really good allegorical benefit to seeing it all the way through. But season 3 and 4, go watch it just so you can see the time period that they're living in and how it functions. And that'll give you a glimpse of where we're heading. 100%. Okay, yeah, 2020, the pandemic. 2021, Prince Philip dies. George Floyd on 4/20, right? 4/20 is a midpoint of that season, right? It's also Adolf Hitler's birthday. So that's a significant date for them. And then 2022, the Bucha massacre, Brooklyn subway shooting. Elon Musk reaches deal to buy Twitter, which absolutely was April 25th. So that had a huge effect on society and how it operates and how it functions, right? Remember, the game is perception management for behavior control. They do want blood, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to happen. right? They want the shift. They want the event. They want the traumatic event in the public eye to create a frenzy, to create a shift in behavior, awareness and behavior, right? And 2024, bank shooting, and then escalation between Iran and Israel. And you could see where we're at now with even in that, right? With the Epstein files, all of these events are all for, if it's on the news and it's being talked about on the mainstream, and now even in the alternative media, because the alternative media, what we call the alternative media, is pretty much the new mainstream, right? They are being spoon-fed these current events that they touch on. Now, sure, having an awareness is one thing, but fixating and focusing on these current events and thinking and investing all your time and attention and awareness on there, thinking that there's going to be change, that change is going to be reaped from that, all that attention and energy and what has been sown within towards those current events, is folly, right? Complete folly. So we can see those events jumping off, and that's the season of sacrifice. So what are some takeaways? Let's get into the meaning of the live stream and some practical approaches that we can utilize. Obviously, this live stream is to educate you on this time period. So it's very important to have discernment and have vigilance, and also take action within your life. We are in a fire year, right? For the solar cycle, it is energetically, it is a fire year. So that fire element of momentum, forward progress, willpower, activation is already a macro attribute. So it's good to know that, right? Because there's going to be some high probabilities, and they're already setting certain shit up, right? I mean, you take whatever the mainstream, whatever they say, and there's always kind of a catch 322 with that, right? But you have, Trump talking about potential drone strikes in California, and even they're doing, Gavin Newsom, the fucking governor, is having press conferences, and you're seeing shit on the mainstream news out here in California, like be prepared, offering $5,000 if you've seen this drone or this or that drone, right? It's all for your perception, influencing your perception to keep you fixated and focused on the current events and on the bullshit that is being spewed, because they don't want individuals to come into an awareness of activation, of actually acting towards the solution, which is understanding the law of manifestation, meaning how do we change a condition? What are the laws of change itself? For human beings, moral law is the governing dynamic, and how we respond within our free will choice, how we act in accordance to objective morality. And of course, act ion, the preformed energy in the world. That is the basis of the law of manifestation. It's not solely intention and feel good, right? It's fucking action. It's what you are doing with your hands, your legs, your heart, and your mind. Action itself. That's right, Tim. Year of the horse. Yeah, for the Chinese New Year, Year of the Horse, which I've been raised with horses. I love horses, right? Horses are the embodiment of momentum, movement, power, strength. right? Forward motion. That is what a horse is. And I did a whole live stream on 2026, the year of the horse, which we are in a few days. It is March 15th here in the States, right? In a few days, it will be officially the new year. So when I did a month ago, when I did that live show, that was all about the preparation for that year on a psychological and energetic level, right? To prep coming out of the season of darkness, the season of death, from the year of the snake, shedding the old habits, shedding those old belief systems, and saddling up that horse, man, and getting on and going. That's what we need. We need action. Why the 15th of March? No, I was just saying today in the States, it is the 15th. So I wanted to do this live show before March 19th, right? Because once we get to March 19th, we're in spring. We're in the season of sacrifice. So let's move into the season of sacrifice on the light spectrum. Because, brothers and sisters, check it out. We all sacrifice. Every day you are sacrificing time, attention. You're sacrificing your spiritual currency. You are paying attention right now by viewing this live show. And I thank you for that. Right? In return, I hope you could find value within it. But sacrifice is an inherent component to existence, to reality. The question becomes, what are you sacrificing and why? Sacrificing for what? The majority of parents sacrifice their children almost every day for 6, 7, 8 hours. They sacrifice their own children to the state. Many aspects, right? You sacrifice when you go to the gym. You sacrifice. And remember, there's a positive and a negative context. There's a light and a dark. You sacrifice when you eat well or you work out hard and you're sore the next day. There's a sacrifice there. But there's also the negative sacrifice where you go, fuck it, I'm going to eat fast food. Right? There's a giving up. That's what the word sacrifice means. A giving up in exchange for sacrifice. So during this time period of spring, of renewal, of rebirth, of fertility, fertile, it is the time to plan and act. And what I'm referring to, obviously, is on the individual level and in the world towards the solution of educating people of natural law and how the belief in human authority is absolute bullshit and is the source of suffering in the world, right? So just as the last few days, I've been prepping my garden, right, to get those seeds in the ground, to get those seedlings in the ground, right? There's time and attention and sacrifice there. We need to do that on the mental level and the physical level, right? So let's go. So this information today is twofold. One, actually threefold. First and foremost, what this phase or cycle is and represents. The natural energies that come with this time period, the season of sacrifice. Number two, it's been weaponized and is being used actively against the public. You either know or you don't. You're either activated within discernment or you're going to be bamboozled. Many, many people are getting hoodwinked. They're getting got. now actively and will get scandalized when these events take place. And they will do some events during these 40 days. They will. 100%. Okay. There we go. Yeah, I made a little graphic on. So let's talk about. So remember, this is a period, a cycle, a phase, March 19th all the way to May 1st. You reap what you sow. This 40-day period is the sowing phase on all levels. The metaphysical, spiritual, physicality, the mental, all of it. So some ways that an individual can counter and come into a state of harmony or balance. Obviously, the connection with nature itself, externally, spending time outside, observing and recognizing some of the signs and symbols that are everywhere within nature. That's a practice that should be, well, first and foremost, do that with your kids. Teach your kids to recognize synchronicities, signs, and symbols in nature, in the external world, right? That develops fantastic pattern recognition for young children. So, attuning yourself, your circadian rhythm, your daily cycle is very important. And you sit with a pad and a pen and figure that out. Like I said, when the times when the cycles shift, I like to synchronize my days with the sun. So even right now, right, it's 9 p.m. Typically, I'm winding down and I'm going to be asleep for between 9:30, 9 and 10. I go to bed shortly after the sun goes down, and then I'm up hella early when the sun is starting to rise, right? And, again, personalized templates, personalized frameworks on what works with you. Planting food, I think, is very valuable. Herbs, garden, or veggies. A lot of benefit there. You're working with the land. You're working with the natural energies. Growing herbs, I think, is a necessity, right? There's many things you can grow. As an herbalist myself, oregano, right off the bat. Oregano is the most incredible herb for wellness. You're dealing with anything, any type of ailment. Oregano is incredible. It is extremely strong and should be taken by itself, right? But it's super easy to grow. Oregano, basil. I'm cropping nettle right now because it grows organically and naturally all around my house, right? That's another good one to grow. So anyways, growing some herbs, very easy. Really, anyone can do container growths, but it puts you in a state of working with nature, working with the land. And also it's a meditative practice as well. Remember, this is balancing the energies, because during this season of sacrifice, there's going to be, we're already in it, but I'm saying there's going to be an uptick of disarray, of false flags, events that are going to leave people fucking scattered. Right. And that's what they want. They want people stuck in the fear-based mentality, fixating on all of these current events that are going down. And in truth, you need to be balanced within yourself, focused on your goals. Personal renewal. Write and burn old habits, right? This phase is renewal. Let those old habits go. Write down your goals. Almost like, this is the real New Year's goals. Write some down, stick to them. The reason why that's important, right? Remember, there's an amplification of energy. Anything that is renewal, fertile, fresh, sowing, there's a natural amplification of energy in the ether sphere, in the ether itself. Take advantage of that. It's a great time to set new goals and fuck off the old ones. Deuces. Physical vitality. Begin new fitness routines, right? Movement, exercise is very important. Outdoor sun exposure, and practice breath work. Obviously, this is a fire year, so movement is going to be crucial. If you are not utilizing some type of movement, exercise, hiking, walking, stretching, then you're going to have a rebound effect, meaning the negatives are going to be more negative, right? This is the time to align and move around. The breath, 100%, right? Breath work is very important. And then ceremony and meditation. So cutting back on the media, the social media, referring to the bullshit, right? The current events. And I'm all of this, doing these live shows are therapeutic for myself because I'm speaking to myself as well, right? So these are things that I've already put in motion that I am planning to do as well. But yes, something when it comes to social media, man, it is an attention trap, right? An event pops off and the alternative media wants to be the first one to bring it to the platforms. Right? That's what I mean. They're acting like they're the new mainstream, and they are. They want to be the first ones to drop it, and they just want people sucked in. And then people talk about it, the back and forths. Waste so much spiritual currency on fixating on these current events, and it will get worse. Prepare, know it, and prepare for it. Prepare to resist that. Right? Replace that with focusing on your goals, understanding technological literacy. Start working on that website. Start creating those videos explaining natural law or objective morality. Positive practices to align your mind, body, and consciousness during the most potent season of nature's rebirth. Also, on some ceremony during this time, I love, if you have a hearth in the house, that's great, but that's more activated and more amplified for the winter, right? Because it's internal in your home, but you're still dealing with fire. A fire pit or, campfire, or just a some type of flame outside in the evening as a meditative practice, and then doing breath work. It's fantastic for clearing your space and honing in to mental energies and emotional stability as well. Yes. Oh, getting the sun on your skin when I was talking about being outdoors, very important, right? Solar, that energy, which the sun itself is high-powered hydrogen. If you don't know, I'm all about hydrogen, right? The fundamental element, the smallest, that the sunlight getting absorbed into your skin, but it also for awareness and consciousness, for the mental aspects, right? With that information. Okay. So yeah, those are some practices, but remember, those are balancing practices. They should be focused on during that phase. Spring is the most potent phase, the most potent for creation, right? It starts in spring and it peaks in summer. So if you start getting off your ass in summer, you've already missed the planting phase. Sure, you can do things, right? But this is all about understanding the natural energies that are already there and tapping in to those slipstreams and utilizing those. Let me check out Instagram, the Diary of Anne Frank. Thank you for joining. Are these practices different for us in the Southern Hemisphere as we go into autumn? Yes, 100%. In the Southern Hemisphere, it is turned around. I have presentations on those practices as well. My most recent one was, a few months ago. Go check out The Long Night. It has some winter and internal practices. For the Southern Hemisphere, obviously you're going into fall and winter, and this is the process of going internally, right? So a lot of internal work in that internal ecology or shadow work can be done during this time. 100%. Odin's Initiate, thanks for joining. They want people's minds full of war and fear. 100%. Absolutely. And they got it right now. There's going to be an uptick during this season of sacrifice. And during this time period, right, we've seen them do global events. I mean, every event is global at this point just because of social media. So the effect ripples and reverberates all through the whole planet. Agenda of Truth, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining. What are we to expect within the next 2 to 3 years? Is this going to be a cashless society? Good question. This is, this is a question that I get. I don't know if it will be within 2 to 3 years, to be honest. We need to remember that the social engineers plan 100 years in advance, right? It's actually something that we, as truth speakers and fighters, need to consider as well. Legacy, right? When I'm doing this work, sure, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do for truth and for morality. I'm also doing it for my daughter and her kids and her grandkids. We need to think like the Native Americans did and many, many indigenous cultures with the 7 generations, right? Everything they did within community, they always considered 7 generations down the line and how it would affect them. What is the population? The population right now being entrenched in solipsism and moral relativism and egotism, they only care about them in the now or what they're going to get tomorrow, right? But even the so-called truthers, are they really thinking like this? Are they thinking 7 generations? Absolutely not, because we can just observe how many people are talking about the belief in human authority, the belief in government, objective morality, natural law, meaning the governing dynamics that generate a condition. This isn't in the forefront of conversations and topics on even alternative media or in the big, influencers of, the truth and freedom communities. So, but I'll give you an answer, right? Like I said earlier, the dissolution of traditional government, or we could say democracy, right? I think they are, and it's clear to me, they are intentionally implementing the disillusion of that to the public. They are purposely doing some stupid shit and collapsing what normies would call democracy, right? The two-party system. They are breaking that down, and they are flopping the polarities so much that I think maybe in the next couple years we are going to see some type of new structure of government, maybe, controlled by AI. But where I'm going with this, right, with the war and the Epstein files, traditional politics and politicians, they are throwing them under the bus, right? They are throwing them under the bus to create that problem, to get a reaction where the public is like, fuck these politicians, fuck government, fuck the two-party system. And then they're going to provide the solution, some kind of, whether it be corporate or maybe even religious. There's a huge uptick in a lot of the cultural religions as well, right? And I mean, they're already knee deep in the religious war set that someone like Albert Pike, 33-degree Freemason, wrote about extensively in Morals and Dogma, talked about this, right? So I don't think that was prophecy. I think that's part of the plan. Remember, they thinking many generations, many years to come. They understand that they're going to be back, reincarnate. If they don't already, I think they already have that technology to extend their physical incarnate, right? But they're thinking many, many years in advance. I was the only one thinking ahead at the bigger picture. She's talking about during COVID. Everyone around me was only thinking about what was happening in that moment. Exactly. She nailed it. The majority of people are stuck in a chaotic frenzy in the liminal space, right? The liminal space is that phase, or is that space where the work is actually being done, right? A crude example is if you're in your kitchen of your home and you want to get to your master bedroom, the liminal space is the hallway that you have to walk through to get to the master bedroom. So when you have internal confusion, that leads to external control. Meaning, when someone's internally confused, they want to either seek and latch on to some type of control system to try to make sense, or they want to control others. It's typically those types of people. It's the slave think or the master think. The master think wants to control others, right? So there's a lashing out. And then the slave think is just submitting and clinging on to some type of ideology where it's a justification. We obviously saw this with MAGA and all these retards, right? That's their security blanket that they're desperately holding on to. So let's see what else we got. Thank you for that comment, The Diary of Anne Frank. Appreciate you. I love the comments on Instagram. I'm going to start doing a lot more content on IG. Odin's Initiate. I've seen what they want to create. It's not good. We have to fully anchor the higher self here and deal with them that way. Yes, all of this knowledge of what the higher self is, what it really is, not some new age fabrication woo-woo, right? What it is, practical. It's the three staves. Is it true? Is it moral? And is it useful? Right? So understanding what the higher self is, right? You only are in that unity consciousness. First of all, when you understand right and wrong, you understand what right and wrong are. That way you're able to function, operate, and make your free will choices in accordance with morality. Right? So just talking about that information is the first step. This is part of the solution. If we want to create change, and change within humanity is based upon the aggregate species. It's the compounding effect of individual choices that creates a condition or state of. Our behaviors and actions, our choices are dictated upon the information that we hold. So if we want to influence for the better people to act morally, to not support and condone systems of control and violence and coercion like government or even religions, any type of religion that promotes violence, right? Then where do we need, what's the only way we can influence an individual? It's through the mind. It's through using our voice to educate people so that they can take that information in and apply it to themselves. So, yes, there's a lot of, that's why it's called the one great work, because you're trying to influence, you're trying to educate someone to give up a religion that they have known their whole life. That's real internal shadow work for someone to go through. And we have to keep in mind for this time period of the season of sacrifice, the dark occultists, the social engineers do not create. They are incapable of creating. They are soulless. They cannot create, but you know what they can do? They can influence and manipulate. They are the embodiment of the black sun itself. They are the manifestation of ego gone wild, of a dominant ego, where all it wants to do is just control, influence, and manipulate. Who actually creates? It's the people. It's the public. So why is something like the season of sacrifice or these psyops and false flags so important to influence perception, influence awareness? Is so that people take certain behaviors and actions, and they, the public, the populace, the collective of humanity, literally create the condition that they want. So in my work, I don't focus on, who's at the top of the pyramid? What are the names of the people? For me, that's irrelevant. They are swapped out here and there. The people behind the curtain, we will never see these people on TV. It doesn't matter. Even if we could find out these factions and take them off the earth, they'll be replaced instantly. That's because the real enemy is the ignorant masses. Real evil meaning live backwards, meaning you are in opposition to the rhythm of life. That is evil. It is ignorance itself. So this is why the one great work focuses on educating the public, because the ignorant masses that are supporting and condoning immorality are the ones that are influencing and generating the human condition of slavery and suffering. The order followers, the police and military, right? We remember moral culpability. You see the people on the left, people on the right, they're always blaming politicians for wars and bombs, when there were individuals flying bombers, pressing the button, dropping Tomahawk missiles on schools, or going into a village and shooting people, right? This is, as human beings, we are 100% accountable and responsible for the actions and the choices that we perform. How many people in the alternative media are talking like that? Not that many. Not that many. And during this season of sacrifice, it's important to look within your own internal garden, your own internal ecology, and say, what are the weeds? What are the rocks? What's the calcification that is holding me back from getting involved, from taking action, right? Taking action either in your personal life to get your health in shape, to get your awareness on track, to set up, to start educating for the public, to get involved in community, exit and build. Where can I stop supporting these immoral systems? Financially, health, education, my children, right? These are all categories that we can look at and pull the weeds, move the cinder blocks, and plant the seeds of renewal in this fertile soil. That's this phase, the season of sacrifice. In a past episode that I did probably like 6 years ago, my partner at the time, John, we had Natural Freedom League, which is a video podcast. In my earlier days, we had fantastic guests. You could check that out, Natural Freedom League. Some people are on the channel right now. We called it, instead of the season of sacrifice, we called it the season of sovereignty. And we'd go out on the streets and educate people on what this time period was and how to utilize it, but also pay attention and be vigilant and use discernment. All right, let me go through the chats a little bit. What's our time looking like? 1:33. Very good. Derek, what's up, brother? Good seeing you. Appreciate it. Oh, John's doing good. Yeah, I talk to him every once in a while. We'll be homies, you know. I mean, we live in the local area, but yeah, we're homies. He's doing the dad life thing and actually making content on TikTok on spirituality and stuff like that. So check out Instagram. Any questions or comments? I'm probably gonna wrap this up here. Let me check my notes, make sure I always get notes and outlines and then hardly use them. There's something I'm going to work on, getting my notes in track. But yeah, I think I touched on most of everything that I wanted to. I will put a link to the images. You can always get slides and images on my website, willkeller.com, right? So even the positive practices, and there'll be a lot more information. This was obviously just Cliff Notes for just a visual aspect. I'll put my episode notes, show notes in the link itself and the description of this video. Agenda for Truth, thanks for joining again, man. I see the world splitting into between the more awake and the ignorante slaves, but I don't know how that's going to turn out. Yeah, they I do not see, and I've been seeing this a lot lately in the kind of truther realms, right? Talking about the Great Awakening. If there was a true, well, first you have to ask yourself, and I did a whole episode on this. What does it mean to be awake? What is that word that gets thrown around all the time, right? Well, we could talk about all kinds of aspects, right? The mind, body, spirit connection, unity, consciousness. But if people don't understand the difference between right and wrong, that we incarnate here in this reality and we are responsible for the actions that we take, and actions that violate someone else is immoral and incorrect. And then also understanding that objective morality applies across the board. Like people need to apply it to the institutions, into government, etc. Because I see this a lot where they go, oh, well, human beings are flawed. Like, we need a control structure. We need some form of government, etc. Right? It's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it yet. You think you know, but you don't. So first and foremost, to be awake, that information must be known and embodied 100%. And more people need to be talking about it that have a platform and have an influence in the public. Order followers need to come into this information and start quitting their cult. When we start seeing that, like, imagine if hundreds and thousands of military people said, you know what? No, we're not going to go into this area. We're not going to drop bombs. And they just dropped their uniforms and left. Breaking the square. Once we start seeing things like that, absolutely, then we're on a good trajectory and orientation for what we could call a great awakening. I see an awareness happening, right? The majority of people understand that shit's fucked up. They get that. The majority of people. And a large portion of them understand that, okay, government's all faulty, the Epstein files, the politicians, celebrities, these are all pedophile scumbags, right? A lot of people have came into that awareness recently, right? But still, that's where they want the public to be. When we understand MK Ultra and what MK Ultra was in the 70s and 80s, multiply that by 10,000. Now it's done on a whole planet. And we saw that during the pandemic. Perfect MK Ultra execution. Yeah, you're right. Odin's initiate. Yeah, people don't understand as within, as without, and as above, so below, and what that means. If you polarize a nation or land so much, it will split. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that they want to do. And we'll see the pendulum swing in its extreme on both sides. That's what this time period, the season of sacrifice, is about. Sowing the dark seeds of the mental parasites, of the mind viruses. So when that harvest comes in summer, rotten fruit, immoral roots, that's what it is all about. Let's see. Yep, that's right. Thanks for joining. Ziha. Liberty Mind. 1 week till Yeah, spring equinox. That's what this whole live stream is all about. That season of sacrifice. So as I wrap this live show up, let's let me get into my closing. Oh, I'm going to do another live show maybe tomorrow. I'm going to have some time, so I'm looking to do some more and more live shows. I have some presentations that I'm going to be doing that I need to catch up on. Like, I need to present them publicly. One of my favorite things that I love to do, source code, which is the Hermetic Principles Revealed, symbiosis, the rhythm of life, the extended version, which is a fucking massive presentation. It's so good. I have the Spirit of Fire extended, and I have internal ecology, which is a shadow work presentation. I'm probably going to just book those dates and put the whole calendar up on my website at willkeller.com and stick to those, commit to those dates. But the next current live show that I'm going to be doing, maybe tomorrow or this week, it's going to be on Ostara hydrogen therapy. If people aren't familiar, my partner Logan Hart and we have a molecular hydrogen therapy platform, and our mission statement is awareness, access, and activation. It's not just a business or a company that sells high quality hydrogen therapy products like the ones you see in the back. First and foremost, education. So awareness. What is hydrogen? What is molecular hydrogen? What is hydrogen therapy? How can it benefit you? The myths, all the shit to watch out for from the opportunists, and what our purpose is, which is all about integrity and wellness and helping people. So again, you can go to my website, get the Hydrogen Essentials Kit for free. It's a free ebook and a webinar. And that's also on willkeller.com, or you can go to ostarahydrogen.com. But my next presentation is going to be on that because it's Ostara hydrogen. Ostara, it's not ancient, but Easter, right? Again, we're going to talk about Easter, the pagan origins of Easter itself. Also talk about Ostara, which is spring, is renewal. It is revitalizing, all this kind of stuff. And hydrogen being the smallest molecule, but also the most abundant molecule in the universe. 97% of all physical matter is comprised of hydrogen itself. And this has, when you take it in the molecular hydrogen form, it has profound effects, therapeutic effects on the body. Combats cancer, EMF radiation, which what originally it was used for that couple hundreds of years ago. All kinds of things. So that'll be the next presentation. It'll be really fun. I'm passionate on H2. I've been involved in the research and the science and the therapy for 14 years, and I'm looking forward to sharing that. So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time and attention on this Sunday, a few days before the jump off of nature's new year, the cycle of life, the season of sacrifice. I implore you to look within, pull those weeds that are stopping you from moving forward, tend to that soil internally so you can plant those seeds, those goals of activation, and tend to those goals. Apply that attention, that care, and that action to those goals themselves so you can reap what you have sown. and be vigilant out there with the events that could potentially take place. And thank you for joining. Catch y'all on the next live show. Again, willkeller.com. I appreciate you all. Have a good one. Oh, if I can get to... There we go. Oh, maybe not. Something's wrong with... Weird. Well, I was going to play something to wind it down, but it looks like... There it goes. All right, guys. Guys and gals, thank you so much. People on Instagram, appreciate you. X, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You guys have a good one. Take care.